In this video, we're going to examine the sentence diagramming tool, which, by the way, you can access it two ways. You can click on Tools and then simply type in Sentence, and you'll see Sentence Diagrammer. The second place to access it is go to Docs, click New, and click Sentence Diagram. I'm going to go ahead and click it here. Now, when you click on the menu, the sentence diagramming tool opens up to a full screen. It's actually a floating window. In fact, if we move our mouse and drag it, you can see that Logos is behind this window. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Maximize button to maximize it. Let's walk briefly through the interface. You have the Insert Passage, which is how you bring the biblical text into the sentence diagramming workflow area. You can choose any Bible translation, even Greek and Hebrew. You have two options. You can do a line diagram, which is more of the traditional stick diagramming, grammatical diagramming, or you can do text flow diagram, which is more like a block diagram. We'll do both. Now, once you choose a translation, if your translation is an interlinear Bible, in other words, it has Greek and Hebrew and English or something along those lines, and I'm going to choose John 3:16, you'll see we have another set of options at the end. If we click it, let me explain all these. So this is additional information that will come along in your sentence diagram. It's one additional row of information. So right now we're set up for the John 3:16 New King James English Bible translation. Now that additional row is selected here. So we could have the English and nothing. That's the no alternative. We could have English and the manuscript, in this case, the underlying Greek text. We could have the Greek transliterated for us. Then we could have the Greek lemmas and have them transliterated. That is, spelled out with English letters phonetically. Then we can have the morphological information, Ioannidis numbers, the root, and the Greek Strong's number, since we're in a Greek text. If we were in a Hebrew text, then it would say Hebrew's Strong's number, and all these would be Hebrew. For this example, let's just go with the manuscript. Now, currently I'm set for text flow diagram, and I'm going to click Insert. Now, notice that the Bible verse comes along, and then the text is inserted. The left bar allows you to grab, and if you click it, you can move it around. And then the other bar at the right allows you to expand the width. Now, let's repeat this process, but with a different diagram. So instead of text flow diagram, let's choose line diagram and insert that. You can see now there's no bars. Rather, every word is brought in as a separate component. So this means you can grab the 16 and stick it anywhere you want. Whereas in the block diagram, if we click on, let's say, world, everything before it stays in its location, but everything that follows comes along for the ride. So you can see the two advantages, and each one for its own purpose. That's why the text flow diagram is great for block diagramming, where the line diagram is great for grammatical diagramming. Now, we'll come back to these two elements in a minute. Let's look at the rest of the interface. Okay, so we have a page. We can show page guidelines. We can change the margins, letter, different sizes, as well as portrait or landscape. The display, we can make it informal lines, and we'll look at that a little bit. We can always show the shape panels, which I highly recommend leaving checked. And then we can see the alternate text. So let's click on alternate. And now you can see just the alternate text. If we click on primary alternate above, now we can see the Greek above the English. And if we choose primary alternate below, we can see the Greek below the text. So now you're starting to understand the advantage of using an interlinear translation and how that can really help in working with the original language. We can do alternate primary above, and we can do alternate primary below, and we can do hidden, and that hides everything. Now, that can be very useful if you've created a stick diagram and you don't want people to have the answers to fill in. And so that can be very useful. So for this video, we're just going to leave the primary alternate below, so at least you can be reminded of this capability. Now I'm going to left click and drag this to the center column. Now, once you click on an item, as I've done here on John 3:16, the text box becomes available. And this allows you to change the font, the color, the formatting, and the alignment and so forth. So if we wanted to change this to, let's say, 14 size, make it red text, and we wanted to bold it, we just click those items. Pretty straightforward there. Now, if you click off, the menu goes away, and if you press Control-Z for the PC or Command-Z for the Mac, then you can undo those changes. You also have lines, but notice it's disabled here. And that's because I have something selected. But if I click off the object, the line menu is available, but we don't have a line to draw. This allows us to change a line that has been drawn. So let's go over to the left, click on the line, and just click it once so it's selected. Then simply left click on the workspace and drag that line wherever you want. Notice you can drag it in 360 degrees. I'm just going to go straight across and release. Now that the line is selected, I can go up to the line format menu and I can change it from solid to dash. I can make the weight heavier and I can change the color. And I can also decide if I want arrows on the end or both ends. We can also make it solid and so forth. So this gives us a lot of flexibility so you can format these lines any way you want. Now you notice there's a join split option. What's going on there? Well, let's click on the selection icon here at the top left. That allows us to select elements. If we click on 4 and hold down the control button on the PC or the command button on the Mac and click the second word God, we now have 2 words. And now the join is enabled, and if we click it, they're now joined. And I recommend this as the procedure for joining words. There's another way you can join words, and that's to left click and then move it towards the other dot. You'll see, though, that we have a circle inside a circle, and we don't have that with the 4 gods. So there are 2 different ways to join. The advantage of one over the other is with the first one, you don't have that dot in the middle. With the second, you know that it's joined, and if you left click on the dot, you can unjoin it very quickly. Whereas to unjoin 4 and God, we have to click it, and then we have to choose split. So it's a really matter of personal preference and what you're trying to achieve. So be aware that you can join and split words quite easily. Now over at the far left, we have this toolbar of symbols. And the first one is the pointer, and that allows you to select items. T for text. Pencil allows you to do some free drawing. So we can do that. And as soon as you hold down the left mouse button, you can draw. You release the mouse, and you can then be done drawing. And to select it, you click the arrow, click on it so it's highlighted, and then you can press delete to remove it, which I'm doing. I'll click the line drawing. It's now selected in yellow, press delete, and it's removed. We've already demonstrated the line. The rest of these are specific items you can place on there. We can see we have the arrow. We can click on there, drag and drop. Now let's talk about how to change the size and shape of these. You notice the dots, if we click on them, allow us to expand those elements. So you can see here I'm clicking on the dot and expanding the head and the tail. Now notice we can go up here to the line and begin to change the colors and formatting, so be aware of that. We also have the double arrow as well. We have a box, and if we left click on that and drag it into the workspace, we can do it. But keep in mind that you don't have to click and drag only. If you click once, you'll notice that as I move my mouse, it automatically follows my mouse arrow. That allows me to place it anywhere I want. So 2 ways of doing it. You can drag and drop, or you can click once and then drag wherever you want it to go. Now I'm going to press Control-Z and undo those last few boxes. Now, the remaining symbols below are for grammatical diagramming, and I do recommend a particular resource for that. In fact, let me pull open that resource. So let's go to the main library and type in Diagrammatical, and I have a resource called Diagrammatical Analysis. I'm going to click on that title to open. If you want to learn how to do grammatical diagramming, this is your go-to resource. Diagrammatical Analysis by Lee Canonwine, and I definitely recommend taking a look at this resource. This will walk you through what the symbols mean and how to diagram. It's a wonderful resource. Take advantage of that. All right, I've closed the resource and returned to the sentence diagramming tool. All right, before we wrap up this video, let me show you a couple more symbols. If you're involved in arcing, Logos has included the arcing symbols. You can learn more about arcing here at the gospelcoalition.org. They actually have an arcing course that's free. And this will walk you through the basics of this particular methodology. There's a lot of handy videos as well as some additional resources. So take advantage of this free course. Just search the Gospel Coalition Arcing Scripture and you'll find the link. You can see it here up at the top. And again, arcing, grammatical diagramming, all these are methods to help you find the point of a passage. Let me go ahead and click the X to close this window. Now, how do we interact with the text and these lines? So let me demonstrate that. So I'm going to left click on this first symbol. Notice when I float my mouse over it, I get a label. It's a subject predicate. I'm going to left click, drag that in. you'll see that it tells you which part of the diagram. The left side is subject, the right side is the predicate. So really we're talking about the subject and the verb. Now I'm going to click on subject once and press delete to remove it. And let's just say that for God is the subject. All right, so we'll take for, we'll drag it over here, we'll left click and grab on God, we'll connect it, and then we'll take that line, notice the big circle here, and we'll drag it over here. Now notice this big circle does not allow me to change the width of it. So if I go to the right and grab the small dot, now I can change the width. And if I grab the little dot in the middle, now I can move that line. Now let's go ahead and click on predicate and remove that. So in this case, this big circle is really an anchor. It helps me move the whole object, whereas the dots allow me to make these changes. So now we can take for God and attach that to our little diagram. Then let's take the verb loved, left click on that, and attach that. I like attaching with the big white circles and having that interlinear window enabled. It just makes it a little bit easier. And there you go. Now if I left click and drag it, all three objects, the line and the two words, subject and predicate, come along with me. Now if we want to continue the diagram, we can take another object, the predicate modifier, and we can left click and drag that here under the line here. And now we're connected. So there it is. It's stuck together. And then the left click on this dot here allows us to get a little more depth. And then if we left click on this line, we get a little more length. So there is a lot of work to work with these items, but as you can see, there's a lot of customization that can be done. Now at the bottom left, you'll notice that there's an LTR and RTL. The LTR is what's selected, and that represents the left to right. And then the RTL changes the symbols and makes it right to left. So we have a lot of flexibility there. And then lastly, we have a share option. So if we click that, we can share that whole document with other Logos users. We're not going to do it. We'll click done. Lastly, if you click the three dots, you can print and export. This will save it as an image. You cannot save these to Microsoft Word and edit them. The only editing you can do must be in this window, but you can share the final product. When you do that, remember these blue guided lines, they tell you where they're going to print on the page. So this would be two documents, with this being the first column, this being the second column. And again, there may be overflow in additional pages if these are really long in length. I mentioned earlier about the informal lines, and if we click on display, you'll see that option here. Let me check it. You'll now see that the lines aren't so straight. They look informal. That is, they look hand-drawn. So that's the idea behind that. And that affects every line that you draw. Even the grammatical diagram lines here are slightly modified to take in this informal line look. If we click the three dots at the top right, you'll notice we can make the text larger or smaller. So be aware of that to make things a little bit easier to read. Let's go ahead and click the three dots to close this menu. You cannot insert any images into this layout, so you can only insert Bible passages. So as you can see, the sentence diagramming tool is very helpful when you have to grammatically diagram or if you have to block diagram, and that really is the purpose of this tool. Let's go ahead and click the X to close this resource down. Now the document, just so you know, is saved here under Docs. And then once you click Docs, make sure yours is selected, and there is your diagram. Now let's reopen it one more time by clicking on it, and we forgot to name it. So if we click on the pencil icon or click on the name itself, we can type in the Bible passage name. I've typed in John 3:16 and then press enter. You see a number 5 has appeared in parentheses at the right. That's to let me know that I have 4 other documents with the John 3:16 title. This concludes our brief overview of the sentence diagramming tool.